This alder tree is 4 years old. To get the best out of it, we're going to cut it down. Alder is a fantastic tree. It is great for wildlife, but the wood is very interesting. It is vibrant orange when you first cut it, and it is almost completely rot-proof if you keep it submerged underwater. Apparently the entire city of Venice is built on alder tree trunks. It also grows really well in wet soil, which is what we have. You can coppice it, and it makes really good firewood. Maybe it's better than willow. So if I think alder is such a great tree, why did I cut it to the ground? Well, this is coppicing. Alder is one of the few species you can do this with. It causes the dormant buds in the bottom of the trunk, and maybe the roots, to send up new shoots. You then get a lot more firewood. It also extends the lifespan of the tree. Alder trees will often only live to be 60 years or so, and this will make it live a lot longer than that. Now, this is a very ancient form of woodland management. King Henry VIII passed laws on how coppicing should be done. Now, you want to do this once the tree is established and growing well. So with willow, you can do it after a year or two. With alder, 4 or 5 years is best. You also need to do it in the wintertime when the tree's dormant. So it's mid-November now. It's a great time to be getting on with it. Alder trees have always had a bit of a mystical air about them. They grow in dark, damp, mysterious sorts of places. And because the wood looks like it's bleeding when you've cut the tree, people have been afraid of it. The flowers can also create a green dye that apparently was used to dye the clothes of Robin Hood to help him hide from the Sheriff of Nottingham, and perhaps also for dyeing the clothes of fairies, some people say. The rot-proof nature of the wood meant that you could use it for making water pipes, sluice gates, and boats. And on top of all that, just like with beans, the roots of the tree will actually fix nitrogen and make the soil more fertile. It's all around a fantastic tree. I've spoken before about my love of willow, but these alder do give them a run for their money. This is our new alder coppice. We planted about 1,000 of these, but we need even more. So we're going to go collect some seed, and I'll show you how easy it is to grow them yourself. We plan to coppice these alder on a 12-year rotation. Willow we can coppice on a 7-year rotation because it is more quick growing. However, this alder is still going to provide us with a fantastic source of firewood. So why are we growing alder in this field in particular? Well, it's because it loves wet ground, which this is. In fact, we're right here next to our willow coppice, and it loves the same kind of conditions. This field only becomes properly dry if we get several dry months in a row. And up here in the clouds, that doesn't happen very often. You can tell an awful lot about the land by looking at the vegetation you already have growing. This stuff is called Juncus effusus, soft rush, and it loves wet ground. We have an awful lot of it in this field. Now, generally speaking, it's considered to be a weed, but in the past, it was incredibly important. Back before electric lighting, people had to light their homes with candles, and proper beeswax candles were very expensive. So people, probably including the people who lived in our house at the time, would light their evenings with rush lights. So the way you make a rush light is you take one of them and you peel off the skin, leaving just a little strip there to act as a support. Now, the inside is this spongy, pithy stuff, and you can dip that into melted fat, put it in a holder, and it'll burn for upwards of an hour. That's really amazing. Soft rush does provide shelter for some ground nesting birds and small mammals, but generally speaking, it doesn't have much ecological value. By having a coppice here though, we're going to increase the variety of habitats and the amount of wildlife that's here quite considerably. Now, this isn't prime agricultural land, so by growing a coppice, we're going to actually improve the biodiversity of this land. It really is a win-win situation, and we get free firewood out of it as well. Now, we could plant oak here, but they would just die. It's all about having the correct tree for the correct place. Willow and alder are those trees. They should love it here. This is the 4-year-old alder that I cut just a few minutes ago, and this is a 3-year-old willow. Now, it's not had its first coppicing cut. We do need to get on with that, but you can see the difference is tremendous. This alder is a single stem and only about 1.5 inches wide in diameter, whereas each of these stems on the willow is that big at least, and there's 4 or 5 main stems. And of course, this alder is nowhere near as tall. Now, we have a 20-year-old alder and a 20-year-old willow just over there, and we can see how big the difference is after 20 years. All the trees in this row are the same age. They're about 20 years old. This willow tree blew over a couple of weeks ago in a storm. You can see me lying there next to it for scale. Compare that to how big I am compared to these alder trees. You'll see that the alder doesn't grow anywhere near as fast as the willow tree does, but it does have its advantages. For a given sized log, alder has a lot more heat in it, which means in the depths of winter you get more from it, you don't have to load your stove as often, and of course your woodshed doesn't have to be as big. Also, it's a wonderful wood to do woodworking with. So all told, there's an awful lot to say for alder. You might be wondering what this enormous tree is. It's an aspen. It's also 20 years old and grows even faster than willow. And yes, we planted hundreds more of this. Most of the hardwoods that commonly grow in England have roughly the same density when they're freshly cut, just a bit less than water, which is why they float. But the question is, once you dry them and you get rid of all the water, what are you left with? How much heat is there in a log? Well, if you have willow at one end of a spectrum and oak at the other, alder is right between them. This means you need about 25% less alder by volume than of willow. That's useful to know. I mentioned a few moments ago that we want to propagate our alder trees so we can increase the size of our coppice and have even more free firewood. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. The alder tree is monoecious, which means you have both the male and the female flowers on the same tree. These are the male flowers, or catkins. They eventually go yellow and their pollen gets dispersed on the wind. The female catkins are here. They are green and oval shaped, turning brown eventually, and then they open up and all those seeds then can fall out and get dispersed by the wind or land in some water and float away to pastures new. Now we need to collect these in before they begin to turn brown, which is about the right time to do it. You then pop them into a paper bag. You don't use plastic because the moisture content means they would possibly rot before you could collect the seeds. Then you place them somewhere warm, they open up and all the seeds fall out. You can then collect them and sow them and propagate your alder trees that way. So let's get on with it. So alder is a really fantastic tree, but because we grow most of our wood for firewood, willow's quick growth rate does keep it in top spot, but alder is a very close second. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. Somebody's been rolling around in the stream and needs a bath. See you again.